Whispers among the stars. Commander Vera Thelmack stood at the observation deck of the Elysian cruiser Sojourner's Light, her 4 eyes fixed on the swirling cosmic dust of the vermilion expanse. Her scaled skin reflected the amber glow of distant stars as her secondary hearts beat in a rhythm that betrayed her unease. "Commander, we're detecting anomalous energy readings from Sector 87 Alpha," reported Science Officer Kel Zorbin, his tentacles dancing across the holo interface. "The pattern doesn't match any known species in our database." Vera's crest rippled with concern. "How long has this been occurring?" 3 standard cycles, increasing in frequency and intensity. Whatever it is, it's growing. The Elysian Confederacy had maintained this border outpost for over 2 centuries without incident. The Vermilion Expanse was considered uninhabitable, a vast region of space radiation and stellar debris that no species had successfully colonized or traversed. "Send a probe," Vera ordered. "Keep our distance, but gather all the data you can." As the crew rushed to comply, Vera felt a sense of foreboding wash over her. In her 20 cycles of service to the Confederacy, she had encountered many strange phenomena, but something about this felt different, almost familiar, like an old story her clutch mother used to tell. The probe deployed, vanishing into the crimson haze. For several moments, the bridge crew watched in silence as telemetry data streamed back. Then, without warning, the transmission cut off. "Probe lost," announced Zorbin. "Last readings indicate a massive gravitational distortion. Natural or artificial?" Vera questioned. Zorbin hesitated. "Artificial, Commander. Consistent with a large-scale dimensional gateway." The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Dimensional travel was theoretically possible but considered beyond the technological capabilities of any known species. The consortium of allied worlds had experimented with it centuries ago, but had abandoned the research after catastrophic failures. "Send a message to Confederate Command," Vera said. "Priority Alpha. Include all sensor data." As the communications officer complied, Vera retreated to her private quarters. She accessed the ship's historical archives, not the sanitized version available to most crew members, but the complete records her command status granted her. She searched for references to dimensional travel, gateway technology, and the Vermilion Expanse. Most entries were standard: failed experiments, theoretical papers, and astronomical surveys. But one file, deeply encrypted and flagged with the highest security clearance, caught her attention: the human contingency. Humans. The word itself felt like a myth. A species mentioned in ancient texts, but believed by most modern scholars to be a fabrication, or at best, an extinct race that had fallen to the Great Purge 5 centuries ago. The official history taught that humans had been deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable for the cosmic harmony of the consortium. Their homeworld, a blue-green planet called Earth, had been quarantined, then sterilized. But here was a file suggesting otherwise. Vera's crest flared as she read. According to these classified records, the human extermination had been incomplete. A significant portion of their fleet had disappeared during the final battle, not destroyed as reported, but vanished through what observers described as a tear in the fabric of space. The file contained a final note: possibility of dimensional retreat cannot be discounted. Maintain surveillance on sectors adjoining Earth's former coordinates indefinitely. The Vermilion Expanse, which bordered the region where Earth had once orbited its star. Vera closed the file, her mind racing. If humans had indeed escaped into another dimension, if they had survived all these centuries, her communication panel chimed. "Commander," came Zorbin's voice, unusually strained. "You need to return to the bridge immediately." When Vera arrived, the main view screen showed a sight that made all 4 of her hearts stutter. The crimson clouds of the expanse were parting, pulled away like curtains by an invisible force. And beyond them, emerging from what appeared to be a tear in space itself, were ships. Not 1 or 2 exploration vessels, but hundreds, perhaps thousands, of crafted metal behemoths their designs unlike anything in Confederate records. They were angular, functional, with none of the biomimetic aesthetics favored by modern engineers. They bristled with what were unmistakably weapon ports, and their hulls bore markings in a script the computer struggled to translate. "Magnify central vessel," Vera ordered, her voice barely above a whisper. The screen focused on the largest ship, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed even the Confederate flagship. As the image clarified, Vera could make out a symbol emblazoned on its hull, a blue and green circle, stylized to represent a planet, surrounded by stars. "Earth. They're hailing us," announced Communications Officer Drex, his ridged spines quivering with tension. Vera straightened her posture, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon her scales. "Open a channel." The view screen flickered, and for the first time in recorded history, an Elysian looked upon the face of a living human. The creature was strange, hairless except for the top of its head and small patches above its eyes, with skin that seemed impossibly soft and vulnerable. It had only 2 eyes, set in a flat face with a protruding nasal structure. Its mouth contained no mandibles, just soft-looking lips that parted to reveal flat, non-specialized teeth. Yet despite its alien appearance, something in the creature's gaze, a glint of intelligence, of determination, sent a shiver down Vera's spine. "This is Captain Maya Chen of the Earth Alliance vessel Prometheus." The human spoke, its voice translated by the ship's computer into standard galactic common. "We come in peace, but we are prepared for war." "Who speaks for your vessel?" Vera stepped forward. "I am Commander Vera Thel-Max of the Elysian Confederate cruiser Sojourner's Light. You are entering sovereign Confederate space. Identify your purpose and intentions." The human, Captain Chen, regarded Vera with an expression she couldn't interpret. "Our purpose is simple, Commander. Humanity has returned from exile. We seek neither revenge nor conquest, but recognition and our rightful place among the stars." Behind Vera, Tactical Officer Gren whispered, "Impossible. Humans are extinct." Captain Chen's lips curved upward in what the computer identified as a smile, a human expression of amusement or satisfaction. "Reports of our extinction were greatly exaggerated. We've been watching from the shadows, Commander. For 500 years, we've observed how the consortium and its successors have shaped the galaxy in our absence." The vermilion expanse, Vera realized aloud. "It's been a blind spot in our sensors, a perfect place to hide a gateway." "Precisely," the human confirmed. "We've maintained a dimensional pocket, what we call haven, just adjacent to normal space. Time flows differently there. For us, it's been nearly a millennium of development, research, and preparation." Vera's tactical mind raced through implications. If these humans had indeed been developing in isolation for what they experienced as 1,000 years, their technology could be beyond anything the Confederacy could counter. Yet they claimed to come in peace. "I must contact my superiors," Vera said. "Your reappearance will have significant diplomatic ramifications." "Of course," Captain Chen nodded. "But be aware, Commander Thel-Max, we've already dispatched envoys to every major power in the galaxy. The time for secrecy is over. Humanity is reclaiming its place among the stars." As the transmission ended, Vera turned to her stunned crew. "Send everything to Confederate Command. All channels, priority override." Science Officer Zordon approached, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Commander, if the historical accounts are even partially accurate." "I know," Vera interrupted. "The humans were quarantined and purged because they were deemed too dangerous, too innovative, too adaptable, too aggressive. And now they've returned with a millennium of technological advancement and probable grievances," Zorbin concluded. Vera looked back at the screen, at the armada of human vessels, now holding position at the edge of Confederate space. A species of myth had suddenly become very, very real, and the galaxy would never be the same. "Alert all outposts," she ordered, "and prepare for first contact protocols. History is happening, and we're standing at its threshold." As the Sojourner's light transmitted its urgent messages across Confederate space, Vera couldn't help but recall the final lines of that classified file. If humans ever return, they will have evolved beyond our understanding. The survival of the consortium may depend on whether they return seeking vengeance or reconciliation. Which path the humans had chosen remained to be seen. First Contact Reborn. The Grand Consortium chamber had never been so full. Representatives from 27 spacefaring civilizations crowded the ancient hall on Nexus Prime, the neutral diplomatic hub established after the dissolution of the old consortium. The chamber's living architecture pulsed with anxiety, the walls literally darkening with the collective tension of its occupants. In the center of the chamber, displayed on a massive holographic projection, hovered the image of the human fleet. It had grown since its initial appearance 3 standard weeks ago, with vessels now positioned at strategic points throughout the galaxy, always at the edges of sovereign territory, never quite crossing boundaries, but unmistakably present. High Chancellor Orixia of the Elysian Confederacy, her ceremonial crest fully extended in a display of authority, called the emergency session to order. "We face an unprecedented situation," she began, her voice resonating through the chamber. "A species long believed extinct has returned with technology beyond our understanding and capabilities that potentially surpass our combined fleets." Ambassador Krall of the Voth Imperium rose, his armored exoskeleton clanking as he gestured angrily toward the display. "Let us speak plainly. The humans were purged for a reason. Our ancestors determined they were too dangerous to exist alongside stable civilizations. Their unpredictability, their relentless innovation, their capacity for both great compassion and terrible violence, these traits made them incompatible with galactic harmony." Murmurs of agreement rippled through one section of the chamber. "Yet the purge clearly failed," countered Ambassador Telia of the Andoran Republic, her crystalline form refracting light as she spoke. "And now the humans return, not as the primitive warriors of old, but as a unified force with technology that could have destroyed us already, had that been their intention." Commander Vera Thilnax sat behind the Elysian delegation, still processing everything that had transpired since her encounter with Captain Chen. She had been summoned to Nexus Prime to provide first-hand testimony of the initial contact and had found herself unexpectedly central to the unfolding diplomatic crisis. "The human envoys have requested representation in this chamber," Chancellor Orixia continued. "They claim the right to present their case directly." The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, some demanding immediate military response, others advocating caution, a few even suggesting appeasement. Finally, Ambassador Zolran of the Medusan Collective, one of the oldest species represented, raised all 6 of his limbs for silence. When the chamber quieted, his psychic voice resonated directly in the minds of all present. "We cannot undo the past," he projected. "The decision to purge humanity was made by our predecessors. We inherit the consequences, but we need not inherit their fear. I propose we hear the humans' petition." After much debate, a narrow majority voted to admit the human envoys. The massive doors to the chamber parted, and 3 figures entered. Captain Maya Chen led the delegation, flanked by 2 others. A tall, dark-skinned human male introduced as Dr. Eli Okonkwo, chief scientist of the Earth Alliance, and a smaller, older female with silver hair named Ambassador Rebecca Stark. They approached the central podium with a confidence that seemed either admirable or terrifying, depending on one's perspective. They wore no visible weapons, but subtle shimmer fields suggested personal shield technology beyond anything in current use. Ambassador Stark spoke first, her voice calm yet carrying an undercurrent of steel. "Distinguished representatives of the galactic community, we thank you for this opportunity. 500 of your years ago, nearly 1,000 of ours, humanity faced extinction at the hands of the old consortium. Not for any act of aggression on our part, but because our potential made others uncomfortable." Several representatives shifted uneasily. "We did not perish," she continued. Our greatest minds had foreseen the possibility of the purge and prepared a contingency, a dimensional pocket we named Haven, where a significant portion of our population and fleet retreated in Earth's final hours. Dr. Okonkwo stepped forward, activating a holographic display of his own that interwoven with the chamber's projection. Time flows differently in Haven, approximately twice the rate of normal space. We've had centuries to reflect on why we were targeted, to evolve, to advance. We've observed your civilizations from dimensional windows, watching, learning, understanding. The display showed images that startled the gathered delegates, recordings of key historical events, council sessions, technological developments across multiple worlds. The humans had indeed been watching everything. "This is an outrage," bellowed Ambassador Krall. "You admit to spying on sovereign powers for centuries." Captain Chen's expression remained neutral. "We admit to ensuring our survival by maintaining awareness of potential threats. Given that your predecessors attempted genocide against us, such caution seems justified." Chancellor Erixia intervened before tensions could escalate further. "What are humanity's intentions now? You claim to come in peace, yet your fleet positions suggest military strategy." Ambassador Stark nodded acknowledgement. "Transparency, then. We seek recognition as a sovereign power, with all rights and protections that entails. We seek reparations, not in resources, but in the form of lifting all prohibitions on human settlement and commerce throughout the galaxy." "And if these terms are rejected?" asked Ambassador Telia. Captain Chen stepped forward. "Then we will establish ourselves regardless, defending our right to exist by any means necessary. We prefer diplomacy, but we are prepared for alternatives." The implicit threat hung in the air. Dr. Okonkwo cleared his throat. "However, we also bring gifts. Technological advancements we're willing to share. Medical breakthroughs, sustainable energy solutions, more efficient FTL drives." He gestured, and detailed schematics appeared in the holographic display. Innovations that made even the most technologically advanced representatives lean forward with undisguised interest. "Why would you share such advantages?" asked Zolran, his psychic voice tinged with suspicion. "Because isolation has taught us the value of connection," Ambassador Stark replied. "And because we believe cooperation benefits all more than conflict." The discussions continued for hours, then days. Arguments raged, alliances shifted, and private communications flew between homeworlds and their representatives. Throughout it all, the human delegation remained composed, answering questions with a directness that some found refreshing and others found alarming. On the fifth day, as the chamber seemed deadlocked between factions advocating acceptance and those demanding containment, Commander Vira received an urgent communication from her ship. She slipped out of the chamber and reviewed the message in private, her crest flattening against her skull in alarm. When she returned, she requested immediate audience with Chancellor Erixia and the human delegation. In a private chamber adjacent to the main hall, Vera displayed the transmission she had received. 3 hours ago, an unknown force attacked our research outpost in the Helios sector, she explained, showing footage of strange, shadowy vessels decimating the Elysian facility. The attackers used technology we've never encountered, weapons that seemed to phase between dimensions. Captain Chen studied the footage, her expression darkening. "The Void Heralds," she said, exchanging glances with her colleagues. "You know these attackers?" Chancellor Erixia demanded. Dr. Okonkwo nodded grimly. "We've encountered them in the dimensional boundaries around Haven. We believe they're a non-corporeal species that exists primarily in the spaces between realities. Our dimensional technology inadvertently drew their attention centuries ago. And now they found a way into our reality," Ambassador Stark added. "This is precisely why we emerged from Haven now. Our scientists detected increasing dimensional instabilities throughout the galaxy, signs of impending incursion." Vira felt her scales prickle with dread. "You're saying these Void Heralds are invading our dimension?" "Yes," Captain Chen confirmed. "And conventional weapons will be useless against them. They can phase out of normal space at will, becoming effectively intangible. Chancellor Arixia's crest flattened against her skull. If what you say is true, the entire galaxy faces an existential threat. It is, Dr. Okonkwo said. And fighting them will require technology we've spent centuries developing. Dimensional anchors that can force them to remain in physical form, phase-locked weapons that can harm them regardless of their dimensional state. The revelation changed everything. When the full consortium reconvened, Chancellor Arixia presented the evidence of the new threat, along with the humans' explanation and proposed alliance. The debate was heated but brief. Faced with an enemy that could render their conventional defenses useless, even the most anti-human factions recognized the necessity of cooperation. By day's end, the Galactic Accord was signed, a treaty recognizing the Earth Alliance as a sovereign power and establishing a joint defense initiative against the Void Heralds. The treaty included provisions for technological exchange, with humans sharing their dimensional defense technology in return for resources and territorial rights. As the signing concluded, Captain Chen approached Commander Vira. "Your warning saved countless lives," she said. "Without early detection of the Helios attack, we might still be arguing while more outposts fell." Vira's crest rippled with mixed emotions. "I merely performed my duty. Though I admit, I never expected to be instrumental in an alliance with a species I once thought mythical." Chen's lips curved in that expression Vira now recognized as a smile. "History is full of ironies, Commander. Yesterday's enemies becoming today's essential allies." "And tomorrow?" Vira asked. The human captain looked out toward the stars visible through the chamber's transparent dome. "Tomorrow we face the void together. After that, who knows? Humanity has learned patience in our exile. We're prepared to earn our place in this galaxy, one day at a time." As word of the alliance spread across civilized space, ships began mobilizing. Preparations commenced, and ancient prejudices reluctantly gave way to pragmatic necessity. The legend of humanity had become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. The coming storm. The Void Heralds struck with devastating precision. Within 20 standard days of the Galactic Accord, 17 outposts across 7 territories had fallen. Conventional weapons proved useless against the shadowy entities and their phase-shifting vessels. Regular troops, regardless of species, were psychological casualties before they became physical ones. Most went mad upon prolonged exposure to the Herald's non-Euclidean forms and reality-distorting presence. On the Andoran colony world of Lyra IV, 50,000 civilians vanished without trace. The only evidence of what happened was corrupted security footage, showing reality itself seeming to fold inward, creating rifts that swallowed entire city blocks. The galaxy, so recently divided over humanity's return, now faced a common nightmare. At Nexus Station Alpha, the newly formed Joint Defense Command established its headquarters. Representatives from all major powers worked alongside human specialists, integrating 500 years of divergent technological development into a cohesive defense strategy. Commander Vira found herself appointed as liaison between Elysian forces and the human contingent, working directly with Captain Chen to coordinate fleet movements. The position placed her at the center of the war effort and the uneasy alliance it had necessitated. "The Heralds are establishing dimensional anchors here, and here," Captain Chen explained during one strategy session, highlighting points on the galactic map. "They're creating stable pathways for larger incursions." Dr. Okonkwo, now heading the technological integration team, added, "Each anchor increases the dimensional permeability of that entire sector. If they establish enough, the boundary between our reality and theirs will catastrophically destabilize." "How much time do we have?" asked Vira. "At current progression rates, perhaps 40 standard days," the human scientist replied. "But we're not without countermeasures." He activated a holographic display showing schematics for what the humans called dimensional stabilizers, massive devices designed to reinforce the fabric of reality around them. We've adapted this technology from our Haven generators, he explained. Each stabilizer can secure approximately 1 light-year of space against dimensional incursion. We've begun production, but installation will require direct engagement with Herald forces. The first major counteroffensive was planned for the Cygnus Expanse, where 3 Herald anchors were under construction. A combined fleet, Elysian, Andoran, Voth, and human vessels, would attempt to deploy stabilizers while engaging the Herald forces. As preparations finalized, Vera found Captain Chen alone in the observation deck, staring out at the assembled armada. "Having second thoughts, Captain?" Vera asked, moving to stand beside the human. Chen's reflection in the transparent aluminum showed a faint smile. "About fighting the Void Heralds?" "No. About trusting the descendants of those who tried to exterminate my species with the defense of everything we hold dear. Perhaps a few." "Understandable," Vera acknowledged. "Though we are not our ancestors." "No," Chen agreed. "You're better, I think. More willing to adapt. The old consortium would never have accepted our help, even facing extinction." "Fear does strange things to rational beings," Vera observed. "The fear of humanity that led to the purge, the fear of the void that brings us together now." Chen turned to face her. "There's an old human saying, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.' But I hope we can move beyond mere tactical alliance, Commander." "As do I," Vera replied, surprising herself with her sincerity. The Cygnus offensive launched the following day, 300 vessels moving in precise formation toward the Herald stronghold. Human ships took the vanguard, their dimensional shielding technology making them the most resistant to Herald attacks. Vera commanded a wing of Elysian cruisers equipped with phase-locked weapons, technology transferred from human designs. As they dropped out of FTL at the edge of the expanse, the true horror of the Herald infestation became apparent. Space itself seemed diseased around the anchor points, reality visibly thin and wavering, stars beyond appearing distorted and wrong somehow. The Herald vessels defied conventional description. They seemed to exist partially in normal space and partially elsewhere, their forms constantly shifting between states of matter. All vessels maintained dimensional stability fields at maximum. Captain Chen's voice came through the command channel. "Deploy stabilizers on mark." The first wave of stabilizers launched. Massive devices propelled toward predetermined coordinates surrounding the Herald anchors. Almost immediately, the Herald vessels reacted, converging on the incoming stabilizers. "Defensive Formation Alpha," Vera ordered her wing. "Protect those stabilizers." The battle erupted across 3-dimensional space and beyond. Herald weapons tore holes in reality itself, attempting to pull allied vessels into dimensional rifts. Human ships countered with technologies that forced localized reality stabilization, preventing the Heralds from phasing out of normal space. On Vera's command ship, the tactical officer reported, "First stabilizer online. Dimensional integrity increasing in Sector 1. A cheer went up from the crew, cut short as a Herald vessel materialized virtually on top of an Andoran cruiser, enveloping it in writhing shadows. The cruiser's distress beacon sounded briefly before falling silent. "We can't maintain this formation," Vera realized, watching as more Herald ships emerged from previously undetectable rifts. "Captain Chen, we need to adapt." "Agreed," came the human's steady reply. "Implementing Sunburst Protocol." The human vessels suddenly broke formation, executing maneuvers that seemed suicidal, diving directly toward Herald concentrations, then veering off at the last possible moment. The tactic confused the Heralds, whose movements suggested they predicted responses based on observed patterns. "They're pattern recognition predators," Dr. Okonkwo's voice explained over the tactical channel. "Unpredictability disrupts their targeting systems." Taking the cue, Vera ordered her own ships to implement randomized evasion patterns. "All Elysian vessels disregard standard engagement protocols. Random maneuvers, variable intervals." The tide began to turn. 2 more stabilizers came online, creating zones where reality firmed up, forcing Herald vessels fully into normal space, where they became vulnerable to phase-locked weapons. Then disaster struck. The primary human dreadnought, Prometheus, took a direct hit to its dimensional shielding array. The massive vessel began to phase in and out of reality, its crew surely experiencing the maddening effects of dimensional flux. "Prometheus is lost," Vera stated grimly, watching the flagship's erratic movements. "Not yet," came Captain Chen's voice, surprisingly calm. "Initiating Haven Protocol." Before Vera's eyes, the Prometheus executed what should have been impossible. It intentionally accelerated its dimensional instability, creating a controlled rift, then plunged directly into the heart of the largest Herald anchor. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a blinding flash erupted as normal space reasserted itself violently, the controlled dimensional implosion collapsing both the Herald anchor and the brave human vessel. The shockwave rippled outward, destabilizing the remaining Herald ships. In the confusion, Allied forces pressed their advantage, bringing the final stabilizers online and eliminating Herald vessels now trapped in normal space. 3 hours later, the Cygnus Expanse was secured, at terrible cost. 17 ships lost, including the Prometheus with Captain Chen and her entire crew. In the aftermath, as recovery operations commenced, Vera found herself in the war room with Dr. Okonkwo and the remaining command staff. The mood was somber despite their victory. "The Haven Protocol," Vera said finally. "It was a suicide maneuver." Dr. Okonkwo nodded. "An adaptation of the technology that saved our species centuries ago." Captain Chen knew the risk when she gave the order. She sacrificed herself and her crew to save the rest of the fleet, Vera stated, her crest flattening in respect. "It's what humans do," the scientist replied simply. "We've had centuries to contemplate our place in the universe. We decided long ago that our strength isn't in our technology or our adaptability. It's in our willingness to sacrifice for what matters." The victory at Cygnus became a turning point. With the dimensional stabilization technology proven effective, similar operations were conducted at Herald strongpoints throughout the galaxy. Human tactical innovations, often unorthodox, occasionally brilliant, were integrated into joint fleet operations. 3 months after the Cygnus offensive, the last known Herald anchor was destroyed. Dimensional stability returned to affected regions, though not without permanent scars. Areas where the laws of physics remained slightly altered, where reality itself bore the evidence of invasion. On Nexus Prime, in the same chamber where humanity had first petitioned for recognition, a new treaty was signed. The Human Integration Accord went far beyond the emergency alliance of necessity, establishing permanent human representation in galactic governance and officially absolving Earth of the ancient judgment that had led to the Purge. Commander Vera, now Admiral following her promotion for service during the conflict, stood at the ceremony alongside Dr. Okonkwo. A memorial had been erected in the chamber center, a holographic display showing the names of all those lost in the war, with the crew of the Prometheus given special prominence. "What happens now?" Vera asked as the formal proceedings concluded. "Humanity has proven itself beyond question. Your technology, your tactical innovations, they saved us all." Dr. Okonkwo considered the question. "We rebuild. We explore. We remember both the mistakes of the past and the sacrifices that redeemed them." He gestured toward the memorial. "Maya would have wanted us to focus on the future, not dwell on old grievances." "The future," Vera echoed. "A galaxy where humans are no longer legends or monsters, but allies and friends. It has a nice ring to it," the scientist agreed with a sad smile. As representatives from 27 civilizations mingled, discussing cooperation and reconstruction, Admiral Vera couldn't help but reflect on how quickly everything had changed. Just months ago, humanity had been considered a dangerous myth. Now, they were essential partners in galactic society. Outside the chamber windows, the stars shone steadily in the night sky. Somewhere among them, human colony ships were already deploying, establishing a presence denied to them for 5 centuries. Exploration vessels with mixed species crews charted the dimensional scars left by the conflict, studying phenomena that would have been incomprehensible before. The galaxy had faced extinction and emerged transformed. Ancient prejudices had crumbled in the face of common threat. New alliances had formed in the crucible of necessity. And humanity, long exiled, long feared, had returned to the stars not as conquerors, but as saviors. The legends, it seemed, had not done them justice. The end.